Pope Leo celebrated his first Mass in the Vatican today and warned that people are turning away from faith and the Roman Catholic Church. The Pope, who's the first North American to hold the office, addressed cardinals in English, telling them he knows they will walk with him. Our Europe editor James Mates is in Rome for us tonight. James, it was an important first day, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And of course, you only get one chance to make a first impression, which was why, for a man who until yesterday was largely unknown to the wider world, today was so important. He impressed his fellow cardinals by joining them for lunch in the main lunch hall over there. He simply came and sat amongst them without ceremony or formality. For the public, it was rather more solemn, but they did hear for the first time in history the words of a pope spoken with a broad Chicago accent. The first day in a new job, and there's a Mass to perform in St. Peter's. For a new pope, there is no handover, no induction session. For Leo XIV, his past life ended in the Sistine Chapel yesterday evening. He now leads the cardinals who elected him and a church of 1.4 billion Catholics. And when he addressed them for the first time this morning, it was to say, "I will need your help."
You have called me to carry that cross and to be blessed with that mission. And I know I can rely on each and every one of you to walk with me as we continue as a church, as a community of friends of Jesus, as believers, to announce the good news, to announce the gospel.
And as he left the Mass, his cardinals gave him their unequivocal endorsement. He is, they hope and believe, the man to unify their church. That certainly is the view of one of the 3 British cardinals eligible to vote in the conclave.
It didn't take too much to realise that Cardinal Provost had a lot of the things that we were looking for.
I know you can't tell us who you voted for, but it sounds as if you're happy with the result.
I'm delighted with the result. I think at the end, the Mass this morning, at the end of yesterday, there was a real sense that this is right. Here's the kind of leadership the church needs.
And it became clear very early on that there was a front runner.
I think we're getting into areas which I promise not to talk about.
However discreet the Archbishop is being, it's clear that from very early on in the conclave, his colleagues saw in Robert Prevost a man who continued down the road Pope Francis was travelling, whilst having the diplomatic skills to keep even the most conservative on board. James Mates, ITV News, Rome.
Among the millions of people eagerly watching yesterday's papal election were some of the Pope's family who lived near his hometown of Chicago. And today, his brother John Prevost told ITV News he was stunned when he first heard the result. He also said that life for Robert Prevost who's now officially known as Leo XIV, will never be the same again. And that could mean he has to find someone else to trim his trees. He spoke to our US correspondent, Dan Rivers.
Where are you in that?
You can't tell.
Well,
this is
that's
me.
You, is it? Okay.
This is the Pope.
Right.
And this is our eldest brother, Lou.
For John Prevost, looking through the family photos has suddenly taken on new meaning.
We know he knew by first grade.
His brother always showed an interest in the priesthood.
He would take our mom's ironing board and put a tablecloth over it and say Mass. He had a sermon and everything.
And how old was he?
First grade. He knew the prayers in Latin and English. Oh, he's called for 2 hours already.
Since the news broke, John Prevost has been fielding and missing calls from all over the world, including one from the Vatican.
This is the first time I'm hearing that this thing rang, and we are being filmed and recorded.
His brother didn't stay on the line long when he realised the call was being filmed. Now he's preparing to fly to Rome to see the Pope and has one question for his little brother.
How are you doing? Has it hit you yet? Get that kind of question. Because how long will it take to hit, you know? Does he have a minute free? Or is his time now from now on his?
In the Chicago suburb where the Prevost family grew up, the Catholic community has largely moved out. but there are still signs of the tight religious bonds which unified this town.
A lot has changed since the Prevost family worshipped here at St Mary's in the 1960s. The church has fallen into disrepair like so many of the other buildings around it. But now Dalton has found new notoriety as the neighbourhood which raised a pope.
It's all a long way from the family's humble roots here in Chicago, where John, a former altar boy, is now wondering whether Leo XIV will ever have time to visit and help around the house again.
I had him up on the roof cutting trees, and I don't think he'll do that anymore as Pope.
You had him up on the roof cutting trees?
Yes, see how that needs to be trimmed?
Right.
He did that one, and then he got a ladder out and helped me trim that one.
So that tree over there has been trimmed by the Pope?
Yes, it had. Well, he was only a cardinal at that point.
But it's a holy tree in that case.
Yes, it is.
Dan Rivers, ITV News, Chicago.